What is childhood trauma?
So, trauma can be defined as just any event that we experience that overwhelms our natural ability to cope. So, this can be many different things that happen, but in childhood, you know, abuse can be physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and then also we can have neglect. And if we have fear and terror, and thinking our needs don't matter. And if I express emotions, bad things happen. We carry that with us into adulthood. And again, you're right, how we make sense of that. And mostly as children, we have no idea how to make sense of that, nor a lot of the times doesn't make sense, right? So we
Right.
just internalize and we can subconsciously think, it's me, I'm bad, it's my fault.
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can look and feel your best at any age. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 80. Today we have on the show Ange Hiles. Angel is a licensed professional clinical counselor. She's passionate about helping people discover their true selves so they can experience genuine connection, joy, peace, and love. Her holistic integrative approach focuses on whole self, mind, body, and spirit. She helps people establish their natural well-being and reconnect with their purpose. Angel, welcome to Natural Health Matters.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. I love this topic. I love what you're doing, and I love your holistic approach. So if you could you just introduce yourself a little more to the Natural Nation and talk about how you got into doing what you're doing today with the counseling?
Sure. So, yes, my name is Angel, and I've been a licensed therapist for the past 7 years. And in a nutshell of how I was drawn to the holistic approach is more of just my foundation as, a Christian, but a person of faith, more or less, and using that as my guiding post, if you will, like that carried me through a lot of hard times and led me to follow that inner voice of how to get out of where I was. And so, with becoming a counselor and then continuing to evolve in myself personally, I've learned so many helpful skills and the knowledge of combining science and evidence based therapy with faith. And, when we care for ourselves in a holistic way, naturally, the things we have control over, which is, proper sleep, nutrition, exercise, that those things can be very empowering. And of course, our spiritual self. So feeding that, those are the things that we have control over. And then through that, we can dive into more of the clinical skills and looking at things. But it's a nice foundation to have, because we are mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you on that, Angel. When I was writing my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health, I was talking about the mind and the mental emotional component of a human being. And I came across some of the work with cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And I
Mm-hmm.
said to myself, this is very, very consistent with what the Bible teaches. If you study the Bible, you have tools for living. And I've believed this for many years, that if you are raised in a Christian home and your parents teach you the Bible as a child and you implement and you can incorporate those things into your life as a teenager and a young adult, you are wise beyond your years. You are more mature than the average 18, 19, 20-year-old because biblical wisdom is timeless and it's appropriate for every person, every place, in all times. And when we incorporate that understanding, that foundation into something like what you're doing, I think it just amplifies. It just turbocharges things because you're really hitting on all cylinders. You're really hitting on the truth, and the truth is what sets people free.
Mm. Beautiful. Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Oh, thank you.
Mm.
So, it's been my experience, Angel, that when we work with, my wife and I have been working with married couples for the last 7 years, and childhood trauma is unfortunately all too common. In fact, I would suggest that no one escapes it. We live in an imperfect world, and we all experience childhood trauma. And when we're traumatized as a child, even up especially in the ages of 12, 13, 14 years old, our prefrontal cortex has not really developed fully, and we're not really capable of processing some of these traumatic events. So therefore, we carry these wounds and these hurts into adulthood. We form beliefs that govern our actions and our interactions with other people. What is childhood trauma?
So trauma can be defined as just any event that we experience that overwhelms our natural ability to cope. Something that may be traumatic to one person might not be to someone else. So this can be many different things that happen. But in childhood, abuse can be physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and then also we can have neglect. So if any of those situations occur, so if a parent isn't consistently attentive, nurturing, anticipating the needs of their child, and often or inconsistently being aggressive or defensive or not showing up, like neglectful, allowing their child to cry for long periods of time, or telling them as they grow up that, oh, it's not that bad. And, a lot of these things are, not on purpose, right? Just
Right.
parents do the best they can. So I really want people to know that if you're like, oh my gosh, I've done this as a parent, not to shame yourself, right? We're all human and we only know what we know. But understanding that that is how it happens. And if we have fear and terror and thinking our needs don't matter, and if I express emotions, bad things happen, we carry that with us into adulthood. And again, you're right, how we make sense of that. And mostly as children, we have no idea how to make sense of that, nor a lot of the times doesn't make sense, right? So we just internalize, and we can subconsciously think, it's me, I'm bad, it's my fault, I'm responsible, and that's where that walking on eggshells kind of comes in, because, we tend to think and develop distortions that, magical thinking, if I do this, then that prevents them from, being mad at me, which of course, as we know as adults, that's not how it works. Right. And maybe not, I don't want to say as adults, because if we're still carrying that wound and that mindset and don't know, healthy way of relating and thinking, then we do think that's a true belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to point out right now that a lot of times these faulty thinking patterns come about from really good intentions from our parents. For instance, a parent might say, when a kid got an A on a report card, I am so proud of you. And it sounds encouraging.
Yes.
But then a child could interpret that as, well, when I don't make A's, they're not proud of me. So now they're roped into this performance mentality, and I get my identity from what I do, not who I am. And it's very, very subtle on how these things can sneak in and really impact our adulthood and impact our relationships. And of course, relationships are a big part of the spiritual component to health. It's our love relationship with God, our love relationship with one another, and of course, a love relationship with ourselves. That's all about the spiritual component. In fact, I just a little while ago wrapped up an 18-part series on the spiritual component to health, and that's what we're talking about. So, what, as an adult, Angel, what are the signs and symptoms of suffering from unprocessed childhood trauma?
Sure. Before we jump into that, I just really love what you said. If I may, I see that a lot with clients, right? And especially, I used to work with kids and adolescents, and I still have some young adults that I work with, but that is so true for so many and it is subtle. And again, it's not a horrible thing that we parents, do to our children, or, we know exactly. So they do, I have to do more. And also in our culture, that is kind of portrayed of we have to do more, have more, be more. And it follows that, right. And if I don't get straight A's or, engage in all these sports or whatever activities, then right, if my family system values education and we're all engineers and I'm not an engineer, then, I'm a disgrace kind of thing.
Right.
And
I'm an
so,
embarrassment.
right. And I love that you pointed that out because identity is a crucial part of development. And what we're basing our identity and our worth on is absolutely
Yeah.
vital to healthy development. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that
Yeah,
a
that's
bit
real good.
before.
That's real good stuff. Very, very foundational, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we've got to get this right. Again, I don't think anybody escapes this. We all
Right.
have to revisit some of these events and some of these belief systems that we hold, these convictions, and maybe agreements about the outcome our life is going to have. We have to rethink those and revisit them as adults, and
Mhm.
maybe oftentimes with a professional counselor to sort things out and make sure we're believing in truth.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
So, as an adult, let's say I'm 40 years old now and I'm having difficulty in my marriage. What are some of the signs and symptoms of unprocessed trauma?
So a lot of times I see, we can be very avoidant and dismissive and not know it, right? Like, so if our partner is, coming to us and expressing their feelings and we're like, oh, you're so sensitive, or I'm not doing that, and just dismissing it really, and or going into defense mode. We're not truly able to just listen and validate that somebody else is having an emotional experience and just being connected in that space, right? We tend to just jump to those defenses and walls and not truly listen to the emotion behind it. So that can be one sign that, we're not comfortable with experiencing our emotions, or we're not comfortable allowing other people to experience their emotions. So we can be controlling at times, manipulative, that's, and unconsciously, of course, we're not aware of some of these things when they've been such an automatic response for so long. We just adapt at such a young age to survive, right? That, so again, back to the eggshells, a bit like, well, if I'm really, really good and I don't stir up trouble, and, people pleasing is a big tendency where, we make decisions out of fear or obligation, and we're not truly listening to ourselves and honoring what we think and feel, because we think if we do, then somebody else might leave or they're going to get angry. And if they're angry, then that must mean, they don't love me. So we kind of see those patterns a lot.
Yeah. I wanted to revisit something you just mentioned about our identity, and that is we need to love ourselves well, because the way we treat others is going to be based on how we treat ourselves. If we're a perfectionist, if we're constantly beating ourselves up, we're going to be demanding and controlling to other people, because that's the way we treat ourselves. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So you would see that also, right? Like if I'm super critical and judgmental, you can pause and be like, well, exactly. We kind of see our reflection. Our world mirrors our inner experience.
Yes. Yes. I often say this on the podcast. People talk about working out to get healthy, but sometimes we need to do a little working in. And that's what we're talking about today, right? We got
I
to
love
work
that.
in so that we
Yeah.
can experience more wholeness. And when we have more wholeness, that brings more health. So anyway, it's great stuff. Good stuff here. So the traditional approach to counseling is talk therapy.
Mhm.
And I know that it's your contention that talk therapy is not as effective as it could be. Could you speak to that for just a minute?
Sure. So the more research they're doing on trauma, the more studies show that talk therapy just isn't alone as effective, because when we experience trauma, it's not stored in the rational part of the brain. It's in our nervous system, so in our bodies, right? And we have to learn how to regulate ourselves, and that calming the alarm, right, and into our bodies, so we can then access the part of the storytelling and the making meaning and reshaping things. So you can't just jump into that, because the brain isn't online, if you will, right? We can't make sense of things if we're not feeling safe enough in our bodies in this present moment to be doing that.
Yeah. So that's a good analogy. So it's like a computer that's turned on, but not connected to the Wi-Fi. We don't have the internet
Exactly.
here, so we're very, very limited as to what that computer could do if we're not online. So in the same way, we want to get our brains plugged into some more tools and coping skills to help us process those events. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. We must
Okay.
first feel safe and regulated before we can do any of that, the
Yeah.
processing part.
hmm Yeah. Very good. Good stuff. So, what are some of the tools and the modalities that you use with your clients to help them do exactly that, to process those events?
Great question. So I do a lot of breathing, right? Mindfulness training, things that will help a person feel present and safe. And of course, in session, I'm modeling that safetyness, right? Empowering them to make decisions, their safety, anything that can help them feel empowered and safe and connected and seen and heard. So it starts very slow with just building that safety, that therapeutic relationship. And then I do walk them through these exercises of, breathing, mindfulness, body movement. Body movement is very effective, and the mindfulness training is often scary for anyone who's experienced trauma because their mind is so busy. They tend to think they can't do it. They get discouraged. It feels uncomfortable because trauma, it tends to go two ways, right? It creates chaos or it creates rigidity. They're two different extremes, and people are used to being in the extremes. So when you come to the middle and really trying to, calm and regulate the mind, but also the body, right? So calming things down, that feels terrifying because that is unknown, completely foreign to individuals who have had trauma. So that itself just takes time, and then you can help regulate them with your presence and just normalizing that for them, like it's okay that this feels unsafe, but
Yeah.
you are safe. And it's just coming back to the present moment, and again being a more conscious of connecting mind to body.
hmm Yeah, very good. So, one of the things that is on a lot of people's minds these days is fear and anxiety.
Mm.
Since 2020, since COVID hit this world, this planet, there's been a lot of fear, and I've seen people that are really gripped with fear,
Mm.
and it's really, I believe that when you're gripped with fear, it's hard to see your way out. It's hard to see any other way.
Mhm.
And of course, there is a way out. And I know that you work with people with anxiety. So,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about how you would work with a client like that is really having trouble with anxiety and fear?
Well, actually, it's a very similar approach because it's experienced the same way in the brain, right? Like trauma overwhelms, but so does the fear and the anxiety. And it's understanding that even though when we're experiencing that, it feels terrifying,
Yeah.
but anxiety is not dangerous. So sometimes when people start learning that, right, that they can help calm themselves when they're experiencing it, to know that, okay, I feel terrified and this is my real experience, but I'm not in danger. Right? This anxiety is not dangerous. And I just
Right.
like to reiterate that because that helps, again, that empowerment to say, okay, right, what I'm experiencing may not even be what I'm telling myself to, is this really about this moment or is this related to something else? And most often when we have these very extreme reactions, it is about something previous, some association that was made in a different experience. Because again, our memory, the implicit memory that we have, which again, beneath the awareness, is stored. And we might not know what we're reacting to. And that can be scary. But then that activates more of our thinking part. And then we tell ourselves scary things, which then reinforces the anxiety and the fear rather than allowing it to just be. And again, reorienting to the present to say, well, right now in this moment, as I look around, and identify that I am safe, then I can start to calm down.
Yeah, that's very good. You know, the way I can relate to what you just said is when I was just getting started in my health coaching practice, I did some public speaking and I did presentations at Whole Foods, and that's how I got my clients. And so I said I better work on my speaking skills. So I joined a Toastmasters group, and when I first got there, I got the jitters and I got the sweaty palms, and I did the typical things everyone did when they stood up in front of an audience. And one of the we had a guest speaker in one day, and he was a professional paid speaker, and he said, those reactions, the shaky knees, the sweaty palms, the loss of memory, getting frozen up there, that's all based in fear. And I want to ask you, how much real danger is there standing up in front of this room? Is anybody really in danger? I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen up there? Somebody throws a tomato at you? All right. There's no real danger. And so why are you afraid? And I thought, wow, that's a very empowering way to look at it. And I didn't know how to overcome the jitters until I heard that. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Take a deep breath, Dave. No one's gonna pull out a gun and shoot you. You're not gonna have a heart attack up here. And as you said earlier, even if you have a full-blown panic attack, it's not dangerous. It will pass. Right? You
Yes.
focus on your breathing. You tell yourself, I am not in danger here, although very uncomfortable physically.
Oh, yes.
Right? When it translates from mental emotional to physical symptoms, it can get even more scary, and that fear can feed upon itself. But you can, if you've got the coping skills to say, okay, I know what this is. This is a panic attack, and it's going to pass. And, by the way, I've been an airline pilot for the last 35 years, and I've seen it happen on the airplanes quite a bit. Someone's a nervous flyer, and we close the door, we start taxiing out, we get a call from the back, hey, there's somebody that thinks they're having a heart attack. Okay, heart attack, we're going back to the gate. So, by the time we get clearance, especially at a busy airport, it might be 10, 15, 20 minutes before you get back to the gate and the paramedics show up, maybe longer. By that time, the panic attack has passed, and they say, I'm feeling much better now. I don't need the paramedics. And it was simply a panic attack. It wasn't a heart attack, and it happens a lot.
It does, because they are that terrifying, and that pain can be very real if you have chest pain when you're experiencing anxiety. Yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah. One last thing, Angela, I'm going to say on this topic is I heard this the other day, and it's really good. Mark Twain, he's probably one of the greatest orators that ever lived. But Mark Twain said, I've been through a lot of turmoil in my life, and some of it actually happened.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes. Yeah, I love it.
And studies have pointed out
scenarios
that 90% of the stuff we worry about never comes to pass. Right?
That's so funny. Yeah. I could build on that with some other examples, but
go ahead.
You're right.
We got time. Go ahead. Let's hear. I'd like to hear some examples.
Well, that just reminded me of a comedian that I just heard, and he was saying an example related to fear and anxiety that, going to a gas station, like a mini mart at midnight or something, driving through somewhere that they don't know and getting gas. And he created this whole scenario in his mind. And he told his wife, roll down the window if I'm in there and you hear such and such, I'm going to run out, I'm going to dive in the window, and we're going to leave. And he's like, she has no idea what scenario I created in my mind. But, our minds are so powerful that we can literally just paint these stories, and oftentimes they're not true, but we believe them to be true.
Yeah. What's that Bible verse that says something along the lines of words are powerful? It's like it could be compared to the rudder of a ship. You steer the rudder, and although it's a small part of the ship, it changes the whole direction. And the same is true with our thoughts. If we can alter those thoughts just a little bit and reframe them, it can change the whole outcome and the whole experience that we have with this challenge that we're having.
Yeah. And when you were speaking to, when you were publicly speaking and you learned that from that gentleman, it led me to, so talking about beliefs, right? Our core beliefs. And sometimes what I see with that, and even myself included, right? When we get nervous, that's our brain, anything new can activate the stress response. But what it's related to often is, so when we ask ourselves, what really is the worst that can happen? What am I afraid of here? And when we do ask ourselves, it is okay to explore that, really, what is this? And it will be different for other people, but oftentimes it's, fear of rejection, embarrassment, looking stupid. And again, maybe somewhere in somebody's life, you felt embarrassed when you said the wrong answer in class, or somebody did tell you you were stupid, or, those things stick with us. And so there may be something again in there that is coming to light for us that we can shift and offer a new perspective, but honor that emotion, right? So these emotions are stored and these experiences, when we have these emotional triggers, they're wonderful opportunities to heal, right? That to look at that and say, this is attached to something that I didn't integrate into my being, right? So really that's all this is that we have these opportunities to look at these hidden parts, right? To say, oh, shoot, I told myself that I adapted to feeling embarrassed and rejected. So now I've stopped raising my hand, or, I've stopped taking chances because I don't want to feel, embarrassed, humiliated.
Right. So rather than being liberated from that, they've got to, they're coping with it, right? They're just kind of coming into agreement with it, say, well, that's just the way things are, when they don't have to be. Jesus said, I came to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free. Right. So I've talked to licensed professional counselors that said, the truth is, and here's a dirty little secret about the counseling business, people never change. All you can do is help them cope. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Why would I go and spend $200 an hour for somebody that's just going to give me, a way to deal with my brokenness? I want to get over my brokenness. I want to heal. James chapter 5 says, confess your sins to one another so that you may be healed. I want wholeness. That's what I'm after. I'm not after brokenness that I can live with.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
no? Okay. No, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see people changing with this approach. So, that might be true for some. I mean, because that is true. Each client comes in with a different goal, and some might just be, I want to manage this, because if they still are holding on to their belief that this is the way it is, and they're okay with just some improvement. Okay. I mean, you do have to meet them where they are. So
yes,
there's some element of truth to that, but I don't think that's true for everyone, because I do feel people want wholeness. And especially when they have that faith element, that's vital. That is the missing piece.
Yeah.
You have to have a faith system to experience wholeness, because we are a mind, body, spirit.
Right. So what you're saying is baby steps. Someone might not be ready. They need to take a 10-yard leap, but right at where they're at right now, they can only take a 1-foot step. That's all they can do. So we're going to work with that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right. Real good. So, Angel, who is your ideal client?
Great question. So my ideal client is definitely a person of faith, and knowing that that is the element that we build our foundation on, right? That where you can pull your strength from, right? And I will utilize whatever faith system that is my clients, right? So my ideal client has that part. Most often, again, the trauma, they've experienced some type of trauma, but they're in a space in their life where they are recognizing that things aren't working, that somewhere there's an issue, right? And they are motivated and really wanting to do the hard work, right? That they are committed and ready to show up for themselves, right? They're open-minded and willing to do, basically what it takes to experience that. And they can believe and have hope that there is a different way.
If someone in the listening audience, someone in Natural Nation is thinking, well, I think I'm connecting with Angel, I'd like to get a hold of her, and they did come to you as a client, what can they expect to experience?
Support, connection, a very safe, nurturing environment, a skilled clinician, and a person of faith that is going to assist them and provide them with the ability to trust in themselves, but also the ability to experience co-regulation with a person that is able to hold that space and model that calm, secure attachment that they're wanting to develop.
They'll know that they're not alone.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, very good. Before I let you go, Angel, I always like to give the audience some low-hanging fruit. So one of the questions I like to ask all my guests is there some low-hanging fruit that you can share with the audience right now with the Natural Nation that they can implement quickly and easily in their lives for a quick win?
Absolutely. So I like to teach the 3 B's. I like to use it because it's easy to remember, in my opinion, the 3 B's. So the very first thing is, the first B is breathe, right? Take 5 deep breaths, right? And just help calm yourself. So basically, this is helpful when you're in those moments where you are noticing that you're activated, right? You're having some strong response to something and we're wanting to calm ourselves. So that's where you would use this. So taking 5 deep breaths, just breathe, focus on your breath. And then I want you to draw on the second B, which is...
Hang on, before you go there,
Sure.
Let's talk about how to breathe. Most people would say in through the nose, out through the mouth. Is that what you would recommend?
Well, that's actually a great question. So you can do it 2 different ways. Some people do like in through the nose, out through the mouth. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also belly breathing, or diaphragm breathing. So you can place your hands on your belly and just focus on breathing through the belly and really opening up the diaphragm, like really, feeling the breath, push out your hands. And then when you exhale, really trying to, imagine your belly touching your back, if you will. You really want to emphasize the exhale where that helps slow down the heart rate.
Excellent. So what Angel is saying here, Natural Nation, is that it's counterintuitive to a lot of people. When you inhale, your diaphragm expands and your belly should actually rise. If you were laying on the floor supine, put a book on your belly, you should see your belly rise as you're inhaling and drop as you're exhaling. And if you notice that, if you look around a room or even look at some professional actors on television and movies, you can see them doing chest breathing. They're not doing diaphragmatic breathing, and they're stressed out. An actor is under a lot of pressure, and you can see it in them by their breathing sometimes. I've noticed that.
Great observation and excellent point. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, so the second B.
Yeah, so it can go to brain or body. So let's just say body for the second B. So tuning into your body, right? When we're feeling stressed, we might notice that our shoulders are raised, our bodies we're clenching our fists, or, our jaw might be tight. And so we just want to bring awareness to our bodies and gently, relax and really feel present and bring presence and awareness to where we are in the moment. And that leaves our third B to our brain. And that is, let's just gently bring awareness to our thoughts. What are we thinking? Am I thinking angry thoughts, scary thoughts? Right. And gently shifting it. Maybe in that very moment, you can say, "Ooh, I just noticed, I am having angry thoughts." And so now I'm just, as I focus on my breath and my body, that I can just say, "I am okay. You are safe." And something that is soothing.
Okay. Very
and
good.
That's it.
Very
3
good.
B's.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, Angel, if anyone does want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can go to my website, www.angelhiles.com, and you can email me. The phone number's on there. And please feel free to reach out.
And of course, I'll put a link to your website in the show notes of this episode.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Angel, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the Natural Nation.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
For more, go to the show notes page at davidsandstrom.com. There you'll find audio as well as a video version of the podcast, links to all the resources that were mentioned, a full transcript, and as well as a content upgrade of some sort. That's it for now. I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.